Today, Rinpoche gave an incredible overview of the stages of the path for beings of three capacities.
Oh yeah, tanga chue de juju maro e de juju maro ba. E de juju maro da.
So if everybody wants to turn, today we're going to again be going over Lama Tsongkhapa's text called The Source of All My Good, and it's on page 39 in the prayer book for anybody who's new, and welcome anybody who's new. This is Khensur Geshe Wandak. He's a retired abbot of Dalai Lama's monastery, and we welcome you. And today's class is on this text that you'll see, and Rinpoche will get into it and explain it stanza by stanza.
Oh yeah, da de juju maro je me je la re du ba no de ba. Jiva de la re chemu je de la re din. Shugunye ja ju wa res. De la re du de. An la so. So, the Source of All My Good is contained within a collection of works by Lama Tsongkhapa, which are called the Lamrim texts, and Lam meaning path, Rim meaning stages. So the paths that are the texts that are the stages that are contain the subject matter, which is the stages of the path. So Lama Tsongkhapa wrote various lengths of descriptions of these three pathways. First, in the largest form, he wrote what was called the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment. And as a translator's note, we actually have that in English in a 3-volume series. And in a medium level, Lama Tsongkhapa wrote the medium stages of the path, which also now has been translated into English. And then in a smaller Lamrim, he wrote the abbreviated stages of the path, which is the Lamrim Duden, and then some other smaller works, such as the Three Principal Paths, and then this text, which is called The Source of All My Good. So the Three Principal Paths, the abbreviated stages of the path, this text, they are all considered summaries, kind of abbreviations of the larger text, the medium and the great texts. And the medium text contains about 200 pages, the medium stages of the path, whereas the great treatise on the stage of the path is 700 or 800 pages. And then this is just a number of stanzas, the source of all my good. And all of these texts contain exactly the same subject matter, and that's the three principal paths, the three pathways for beings of three capacities. De ulma ne chebe chumu la digla chebe chebe la sung de shebala te denken gegen gugures o de chenye de o de deres mara.
Okay, so we'll get started with the first stanza of this text. Okay, so it's called The Source of All My Good. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him or her in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him or her with all my strength and reverence. So this first stanza is showing the significance of relying on a spiritual teacher or a spiritual friend. Any subject that we want to learn, whether it's driving a car or the subjects that we learn in school, all require a teacher if we want to learn them. A teacher is needed to learn how to do any of those. A teacher is required to learn any subject. So likewise, if we wish to learn about the pathways for beings of small capacity, or the pathways for beings of medium capacity, or the pathways for beings of great capacity, it's necessary for us to find a teacher. We require a teacher to learn that information. So that's why Lama Tsongkhapa begins with that, relying on a spiritual friend, relying on a teacher, because that's what's first needed in order to learn these pathways.
Jibusung Land was the Nelson Gaza to Gane Guguruzana, Lajin Bite, doesn't the Shindu Yaga to Shinshune, Nisan to Jimbo Level, Juji Mabacho, Shinju, the Wajit and Juba Jutayu, made that and she was in your legend Abu Yungures, or Temeba in the Hotin Legend to Maris from the
So, how and who can practice these pathways for beings of three capacities? So the next stanza describes that, the kind of basis that's needed to practice these three capacities, these pathways for beings of three capacities. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. So here, this is showing the significance of having the 8 leisures and the 10 opportunities that allow us to practice these pathways for beings of three capacities. So without these 8 leisures and 10 opportunities, we wouldn't be able to practice these things, but we have them.
다 제비 중을 나한테 된 모양 거라서 말이야. 루수요가 주주버지 얘도 집에 저한테마다 처음부터 봐지 시주로 요단 점아신 가나랜데 시전동하라 내가 때문에 내비소 내가 때문에 내비소 가나랜데선 다 거와주도 뭐 거와주 산탄디그로와 내 거와주 인데부터 도와 용거래 내가 거와주 인데부터 동해 용거래 랜데 시전동하라 tetapi never never go out to the door you but down, deba to the dunga by Yungu the Yabuchi Shibachin, Tambu Shibachina, and then Yabi to Mago to the Pong, and go out to the Katucha to Yanachi waters, touching Tawana and Pombadan, Gisu Tada to Goajo, Gisu Tada to Shevala Tata Bada the machine loss. What about the Jibuchun on the inside?
Okay, so the next 2 stanzas deal with the stages of the path for beings of small capacity. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon. So this first point that's being made is about death and our impermanence. So then it says, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many that we do and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. So we move from the subject of death and impermanence to the black and white deeds. So what these are referring to, white deeds are referring to virtuous deeds, and black deeds are referring to non-virtuous deeds in this case. So it's sufficient for us to say that we can categorize those deeds by way of the 10 virtues and the 10 non-virtues, or the 10 non-virtues and the ethics, which abandons the 10 non-virtues, which is the 10 virtues. So when we look at those, that's what it's referring to. By engaging in virtuous activity, we have happiness. So after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me. Virtue brings happiness, non-virtue brings suffering. So engaging in the 10 virtues results in future happiness. Engaging in the 10 non-virtues results in suffering. So then it says, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then to ever be careful, to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrong we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. So recognizing that virtue brings happiness and non-virtue brings suffering, may I then practice virtue, engage in virtuous deeds, and abandon my non-virtuous actions. So that's the meaning of this stanza, and this is the pathways for beings of small capacity. Khensur Rinpoche. Okay.
So the stages of the path for beings of small capacity are for those who desire rebirth in the higher realms of cyclic existence, of the gods and the humans. So if one wishes and desires this sort of rebirth, then the practices contained within these pathways for beings of small capacity are necessary. So these are practices such as going for refuge to the three jewels of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and engaging in the ethics which abandons 10 non-virtuous activities. So karma and its results and refuge become very important in this first among the three capacities, which is the pathways for beings of small capacity. Khensur Rinpoche.
Oje tata nama chebi mongo dogan kunju go yeden mono sibi phansu je nyame re ne tabi de wala deni chaba chaba shin je lo so de chebun ding lang de go res chebun ding lang ga ju samba ane ga ju samba je an doni du bi shero de la de ne ane taba tu je lang de go marba taba 코알 코데야도 어때 녀모다 레도 녀모 부고거스 어때 나중에 상바도 돈이도 비셔라 때네 아노 어때 레도 녀모가 간 타발은 줄 타빌랑 된 곳에 타빌랑
Lessa. Bene? The Shloka Nipa.
타빌랑 어때 다 난다 상바티 정바이 전다 시에 바에 전바이 템비조 수수 타발로 두바 녀버셔 버신지 로스 어떻게 템비자와 나다 상바티 정바에서 들려 나누 상비 심스 워로다 나다 상바티 정바이 안에 나누 상비 심부고네 자야다 시진 바유 안에 수수기 디바까지 제금도 안에 교와가르도 어때 서서지 거르스 자야다 시진 바유 첨바이 템비자와 수수 타바 템비자와 수수 타바로 두바 녀버시 버신지로 템비자와 수수 타바 수수다바 리지 어떤 샤요라스 수수다바 리 자바이나 글롱 파미 도바니 그주 파미 도바니 근데 얘네가 도바 글로 많이 도바 야나 제마르바 근데 어때 얘네가 도바 저는 제로 얘네가 도바 말하나 드 어때 수수다비 도바서 어때 말바
Lesso. Okay. So the next Dixon.
Okay.
The next two stanzas refer to the pathways shared in common with beings of medium capacity. So let me just read this first. So these are the next two stanzas. Bless me to receive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddhist teaching. So here, this first stanza, bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. So here, this is a desire referring to generating renunciation, a desire to definitely emerge. By seeing the faults of cyclic existence, we want to then emerge from it. So we develop what is called renunciation. It's karma and afflictions that actually keep us in cyclic existence, that keep us from freedom. So it says, grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. The happiness of freedom is referring to liberation or to nirvana. So here, this is referring to how do we strive for liberation. So since karma and the afflictions are the origin of suffering, they are what causes cyclic existence, one is able to get rid of the karma and afflictions by getting rid of the grasping at true establishment that creates them. So by generating the wisdom realizing emptiness, one is able to get rid of the karma and the afflictions which give rise to all the types of suffering of cyclic existence. And by abandoning that which gives rise to cyclic existence, then one can't experience it again, and one then experiences the happiness of freedom, which is liberation or nirvana. This wisdom realizing emptiness becomes a pathway to the abandonment of the karma and afflictions, which are the origin of all suffering. So here it says, grant that these pure thoughts are referring to renunciation. So grant that this desire to definitely emerge from cyclic existence, so by relying on this desire to emerge, it leads me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing by practicing the pathways which lead to liberation. Grant me to make the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddhist teaching. So here it says vows of morality, but really it's talking, if you look at the Tibetan, it says the individual liberation vows, which are the pratamoksha vows. So may I make the pratamoksha vows the essence of my practice. So when we look at what pratamoksha vows are, or what individual liberation is, pratamoksha is Sanskrit, individual liberation is the English translation of pratamoksha and of this susartarpi dumba. Here it says susartarpa la. So that's referring to this kind of vow. So if we look at it, we can divide it into either 7 categories or 8 categories. There are 7 lifetime vows, but we can say that there are actually 8 pratamoksha vows because there's one 24-hour vow. So if we look at what they are in terms of the 8, so we would include what is called a 24-hour vow. And that's just what it's called. It's called a couple of other things, but we're just going to call it a 24-hour vow. And as a note, it's basically abstaining from many of the things that ordained people would for a 24-hour period in order to leave those kind of imprints. Okay, so that's the end of the translator's note. So the next type of vow begins the lifetime vow. So from here on, if you were to say 7 individual liberation vows, we'd be referring to these next 7. If it's 8, you include the 24-hour, which I just mentioned. So the next 7 are the layperson's vow for the male, then the layperson's vow for the female. They're identical. The next is the probationary nun's vow, and then there is a novice monk vow and a novice nun vow, and then there's a fully ordained monk vow and a fully ordained nun vow, making for a total of 7 lifetime vows or 8 pratamoksha vows, 1 not being a lifetime vow. And these other 7 are held for the entire lifetime. So that's what it's saying, the root of the practice of this ethical behavior, these individual liberation vows. So it's almost like if you looked at the translation, it would be like vows that someone who has renunciation holds, because they're vows to achieve liberation, to emerge from cyclic existence. So that's why sometimes they translate ordained as renunciates, but that then confuses it a little bit because there's a different words being used in Tibetan. So that's it. Geshe Lharampa. So Buddha.
What the Susuta region to go Traba, Doba Yogan, Traban tend to go Maris, Chimmy Domba Tombason, Raju Domba Tamangas, Chimmy Dombason.
So if we look at the divisions of the vows, we can say that there are 3 householder vows in the pratamoksha vows, individual liberation vows, and 5 for the ordained, making for a total of 8. And just one other thing, just looking at my notes. So here we need to be careful. It says, make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. We need to be careful because we know what virtue causes and what non-virtue causes. So we make those vows, the morality, the essence of our practice, because virtue causes happiness, non-virtue causes suffering.
Shanchu Senchu Joba Shelo so take Raji call Kuna what the Dungan Najin and the Jen Sentient Tajil maybe and Hije the Shamba what to see Guna and the Shachu sent you let you what the Tiba Chimmy long then was my
right. Chembo. Okay. The Kaba, the Shiloka
Rani Sizulong Jindo, Rani Sizulong Jindo, Rani calling about you and Ganyu Samba. Tea Jushebala Dene, Majin Walk to 10 hours. And then doing what didn't draw. Tone, Noadu Kuchi, and then Sentient Tanji, Tabata Tanji Shabalungo, Goyagi, Kuchi, and the Shanchu Senju was lose. What did Tibetan Buddhism?
Okay.
I don't know to see them what I take the Buddhist Dhamma said what they done, those who can achieve a money.
In the Shloka Kuna.
Okay.
Okay. So now we get into the great vehicle practices. So the pathways for beings of great capacity. So it says, I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own father, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on the task of freeing them all. So here, this is referring to the generation of what is called the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So this mind that aspires to enlightenment is generated in the following way. One recognizes one's own suffering and one's own cyclic existence and the faults of that, and then generates renunciation. And by seeing one's own suffering, then one turns the focus from oneself and one's own suffering to others' suffering, and then generates love and compassion, and then eventually this mind that aspires to enlightenment, which is, bodhicitta. This English is mind that aspires to enlightenment. Bodhicitta is Sanskrit. So this mind that aspires to enlightenment is wishing to bring all sentient beings to a state of liberation, to bring all sentient beings to a state of omniscience. So it's a desire to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's what this stanza is referring to. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, which is bodhicitta, the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and take on myself the task of freeing them all. So freeing all sentient beings, bringing them to liberation, bringing them to a state of omniscience. So, it's very similar to the refuge prayer that we do in our prayer book. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. The meaning is exactly the same, the prayer that we do in our prayer book to this. Digson Rinpoche.
What that the Shanchu sent Jeba in Shanchu sent to go what the Jutu Ganders and the Jundima do you going to say Jib Sudan, Dajin Yabaji going to you, Marba, and Papa Shival Kasa. Adisha is no Latene, Jundima do you going to say Jib Sudan, Papa Shivala is no Latene, Dajin Yabaji going to say Jib Sudan. What near let's Adisha is no Latin, Judah Mangadu, you want to say Jib Sude, and Mashi, Young Javanese, Lasan, Saint Dumarba, Duke None, and Shaju Saint Jutu, Shaju Saint doing the Imbere. What did doing here? Dajin Yabaji, when Saint Jib Sude da. If
we look at the mind that aspires to enlightenment in kind of a broader way, if we were to kind of expand the explanation of it, we would look at the two causal lineages for generating the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So we can find these two passed down from the great Indian masters, Lord Atisha and Shantideva. So the first is the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. This was passed down from Lord Atisha, and it contains 6 causes and 1 result. And the other practice is called equalizing and exchanging self with others. And this was passed down by Master Shantideva, and it shows the downfalls of the self-cherishing attitude. And it says in the Lamrim Chenmo that these two masters are the originators of these practices, the 7-point cause. Well, the ones who taught these practices, just as a note, the Buddha is the originator, but the ones who taught these practices. Lama Tsongkhapa explains this in the Lamrim Chenmo. So the 7-point cause and effect, is the first step is recognizing all sentient beings are our mother. The next step, number 2, is remembering their kindness. Number 3 is wishing to repay their kindness. Number 4 is called love through the force of attraction. Number 5 is called great compassion. Number 6 is the extraordinary attitude. And number 7 is bodhicitta, the actual mind that aspires to enlightenment. So the first 6 steps are actually all causes for the 7th, which is the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And this is why it's called the 7-point cause and effect. So the causes are these 6, and then the effect is the mind that aspires to enlightenment. The next is called the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice, passed down from Shantideva. And this shows the downfalls of a self-cherishing attitude and the excellent qualities of cherishing others. So one engages in these practices to try to get rid of this attitude that cherishes oneself and turn that cherishing, that strength of cherishing towards other people. So having that same kind of conviction of cherishing one would have for oneself, for others. So this is the exchange that takes place. It's an exchange in that attitude of cherishing, this attitude of cherishing. Ngay tsampa kangalaso.
Ta juni me do non tombo mashile do mashimbe. Shenjen ta je rang mayin bo gongwo re. Shenjen ta je rang mayin ba de chabala ane susu la jewal thoma me ba ta shenjen sama ge jewal thoma me ba de mashina shenjen ta je rang mayin ba de gongtu ma res. ane susu jewal thoma me ba ta shenjen sama ge jewal thoma me ba de shea ge jusen karyo ta da karyo asna na den lo ta da song du res. Jongo on bi lo ta ne. Rang ge le de me jes on jongo da on bu da lo song ge ta da la den ne ane rang ge jo susu jewal thoma yo ma res. ane kaza on bu chen yin be je lo da den be je. Tene kaza on jongo chen yin be je. Ta da song la den do da.
So this 7-point cause and effect begins with recognizing all sentient beings are our mothers. And this step cannot be arrived at without some kind of other familiarization. So first we have to recognize that we ourselves have had beginningless rebirth. So first we established our beginningless rebirth, and then we can establish all sentient beings' beginningless rebirth. But without this establishment, first, there's no way to arrive at this conclusion that all sentient beings are our mother. So Dharmakirti in the Pramanavartika Karika, which is the commentary on the Compendium of Valid Cognition, states that there are 3 signs that prove we have beginningless rebirth. So we begin with our own rebirths and prove this kind of beginningless nature. So Dharmakirti said that the arisal of these 3 things have to come from a like substance, not from that which is a dissimilar class. So the meaning of this is that there has to be concordance with cause and effect. So when we look at the 3 things, which are the breathing in and out, the consciousness at this time, and the sense powers, the things powering the senses, where did these come from? They came from a previous moment's consciousness, a previous moment breathing in and out, a previous moment sense power. And when we analyze these 3, we'll find that we cannot come up with beginning. we can't come up with something that caused it from a dissimilar class. So there had to be caused by breathing caused by previous breathing, consciousness caused by previous consciousness, sense powers caused by previous sense powers. And by looking at these things, we can then establish our beginningless births through this same kind of analysis. And then we can then turn this analysis to other sentient beings and analyze their rebirths and their breathing and their sense powers and their consciousness and see they have beginningless birth as well. And then we can conclude, once we've done that about ourselves and others in this beginningless rebirth, that all sentient beings have at one point in time been our mother. Therefore, it's a same continuum, so therefore all sentient beings are our mother. So this is the chain of logic that's necessary to use to arrive at this conclusion that all sentient beings are our mother. Without this, it'd be impossible to believe it, without this use of logic. Dikso. So if they are our mothers, then they've been kind to us in some way. There's been kindness. And then slowly we move from this belief and understanding in the kindness they've shown us to a wish to repay that kindness. And slowly these other steps emerge from one another.
And what you said, sentient tantric mayina, sentient tantric pa may lot umaro. Sentient tantric pa yin, sisita yin, what the data near the ganga is low.
So we also have to state that they've had other relationships with us too, all relationships with us. So we would establish that they are our mothers so we can remember that kindness, so we move through these progression. But we don't say, well, they've been our mothers but not our fathers. They've all been our fathers as well. They've been our brothers and sisters. They've been our friends. They've been our enemies. They've had all of these relationships with us. We utilize this idea of mothers because of the steps required to get to this bodhicitta. So if we have beginningless rebirth, then all sentient beings have had every relationship with us. They've been our friends, they've been our enemies, they've been our neutral, they've been our father, they've been our mother, they've been our siblings, they've been everything to us if we have this beginningless rebirth. So this is how we think about this. But other religious traditions wouldn't say that all sentient beings are our mother. This is something that's especially found in the Buddhist tradition, or it's found specifically in the Buddhist tradition.
Tanji Chenmo Yeshete and Niji Zawali Shunwayi and Shanchu Senji Juli Shunwayi, Taji Paru de Shimbayinos, Kama Lashila Guni Baba Gozo, and Tanji Chenmo Yeshe, Sanji Koponde, Niji Zawali Shunwares, Niji Sayu Joshebala Denishunware, Shanchu Senki Joshebala Denishunwares, Taji Paru de Shimbayinos, Taji Paru Shimba, Shanchu Sen Juli Jesana. Schedule Malona, Sanjay Tumaro. Shanju Saint Jesadu, and the Jimbatan Sutin to Zoba Sante, Shero to the Law, Touch of Paradision by Inos, Gorin Baba Waterenda. Taji Jembi Shene, Hiji Zawali Shunwayi, Shanju Saint Julie Shunwayi, Touch of Paradision by Inos, Gorin Baba. Come on, Lajila.
Okay, so Ale de Lom, Kamla Shila Lom, the Sanjay Sombre. The dog.
Taji Jembi Shene, and Taji Jembi Shene, Hiji Zawali Shunwayi, 샤주 생 줄리 중앙에 터지 버리듯이 막 이노 우리 법을 되어 들어다.
The dola, the konshana dorje geche sheglu.
모두 그런 가tul 몰라주는데.
Okay, so we have so we find the importance of compassion in the medium stages of meditation by Kamala Shila, where it talks about how compassion is the root of omniscience. So we find that it says, Bhagavan said, the gnosis of omniscience arises on the basis of compassion, from the cause of the mind of awakening, and from the fulfillment of method. So here, this is speaking of the compassion being the root of omniscience. So it's necessary to have this compassion in order to practice any of the other 6 perfections. If we want to engage in the perfection of generosity, or the perfection of ethics, or the perfection of patience, or the perfections of effort, or the perfection of concentration, or the perfection of wisdom, it's necessary to have this compassion in order to do so. It becomes necessary to practice any of these things.
세자 제자 수진 나송라 공부하면 자주 물어봐 레바톤의 제세 동발라 전부 잡을로 가시지로 어때 아니 가만라실라고 어때 소화된 데는 저도 말이야
The
세자 제자 수진 자주 저도 생줄 제사가 있나야 시루를 말하는 사제 도 말이스 타주 버르듯이 와 있는 것이 수진 나송라 공부하면 자주 물어봐 레바톤의 제세 동발라 전부 잡을로 가시
So it's necessary this next stanza is very similar to what we find in the Kamala Shila's text, talking about the fulfillment of method. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I am not well trained in the 3 moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. So here, this is speaking of engaging in that practice of the method contained within the 6 perfections. The accumulation of method is also important. So one not only needs just this wish, one needs to engage in the 6 perfections as well.
So
we'll take a short break. Okay, so when we look at what's contained in these texts, and we look at the Buddha's pronouncements, we find that the Buddha's pronouncements in the Tibetan tradition, we have 100 texts here. And these 100 texts contain what are called the 3 baskets: the Abhidharma basket, the Sutra basket, and the Vinaya basket. So these baskets
explain what is called the three highest higher trainings. So when we find a scripture that says the three baskets and the three highest higher trainings. So the Abhidharma basket explains the highest higher training in wisdom. The Sutra basket explains the highest higher training in concentration. And then the Vinaya basket explains the highest higher training in ethics. So these three baskets are how we kind of summarize the teachings that Lord Buddha gave, all of these pronouncements in these 100 texts. Khensur Rinpoche.
What the gentleman did know what they Koabungan the Tenchitabu Koabungar, Lanchitabu Koabungaris, Sajiniji, Lanchitabu Koabungarisana, Labasun the rest, Labasun there, and the Chuji Lutemba, Tingas Pomba Temba, Shero Chanja Temba, what the Chuting Lutemba, Tingas Pomba Temba, and the Magic Shinjuba Ina, Zubu Tambuji, Pomba Tambuyana, and Chanja in the Shinju Toro. Then I just Chuting Lutemba. Tengenzi pomba temba, shiro lava song tuba ina, tene nyomo bata shi jeba kanga pon tu res.
Lam. Den dan lam. Den gare? Den lapsa.
Den kazong azu shinsa ada teremu goji land shi na.
Okay, tuche. So when we look at how we categorize, we look at the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and we look at the outline in the section right before the called ascertain as a note, ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation, right before the three highest higher training section. We have two categories. First, the basis from which you can end cyclic existence, and then the path from which you can end cyclic existence. I think it says the life you lead to halt cyclic existence, and then the path needed to halt cyclic existence. So we already went over the basis or the life you need. So Rinpoche said we're going to go over the pathway needed to halt cyclic existence. So those three I think that's it. So the pathways needed to halt cyclic existence are the three highest higher trainings. Indeed, something. I'm going to do this tonight.
Da lanja da bi what the quad over the sanju da ten la bobanis, sanju the ten la richable sajil ni yongdua, sanju the ten la bobanis, and then Larin Chimbo Jena what they no de Larin Chimbo, and then Yeja to do the new day, 267.
I do. Very you. Okay, so we are going to go to the first volume today. We're going to go where we are on our Sunday class. We're going to the first volume, page 339. Anybody who doesn't have a book, there's a bunch of books up here if you'd like to follow along. Anybody need one? You can raise your hand and Coleman or Ted or somebody can grab them. A few books? Okay, cool. I think the young lady in the back needs one too. Lapsar.
Yeah.
Then Puig, 267? 268?
670.
Oh, okay. Nipa Lang, okay. Dapo.
Nipa Lang Jatabi Kwa Duba, so what
okay, so. Okay, so page 339, number 2, it says, the kind of path you cultivate to halt cyclic existence. So just for anybody who's new here, on Sundays we're going through this whole text, and this is where we are on Sunday.
This man. What that the never launched the ten of about the lower there, Saji needed when Yajibe, and long was of the Sanju dance, ten of Hobani. That number long was on the Sanju did Sanju to what in the shadings of the Muyundua, shading less. Could you understand us one?
I'm sorry.
Understand us one over there, shading lay. Gong Gula, Lubu Mashuna, Tada Shindu Jewa Tane Jang, Yansi Meba Jele, Bete, Deli Chiju Guba, Jemachi, and then Ngul Mashuba in Al Musiat Paja Nal Tambo, Najum Samba, Tony to be shared to Gong Gures, Dunga Dubicheto. Tada Dushi Tane. Yansi meba jele bese de tenyane jebale chechu du joba jen mares jemachi chudin da shiro sante da chudin se du chudin jilaba den doa chudin jilaba le da bi chudin jitemba ne choja de bi shiro jilaba pomba da bi den jilaba de den doa sante ji nyange she du Yang deje ne tuat me kupum magamazi maselo mas semese sachu mono nyanda ane tatu jeson batar ne labara maji sunla lugos labara maji kwa duje gote labara maji sun lagures Tella Labasonji, what that and the Matella for the Leondua. What about the Sanju Jilujana?
Okay. So the kind of path is going to be explained. So there's two sections according to Jayan Sheba about in this kind of path you cultivate to halt cyclic existence. The first section deals with what kind of path it is, and the second section deals is how you engage in that. So we find a quote then from Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. It says, "Train in the path which is threefold, is the threefold precious training." So just as I said before, this three categories we see in the English isn't here. It's just an addition. So train in the path which is threefold, is the threefold precious training. And then we have a quote from the letter to a friend by Nagarjuna. "Were your head or clothing suddenly to catch fire, you should still set aside extinguishing these fires and strive to eradicate birth. There is no purpose higher than this." So this desire to emerge, to end rebirth, is the highest purpose, is the highest kind of aspiration that you can hold. Through ethical discipline, concentration, and wisdom, achieve nirvana, an undefiled state of peace and restraint, ageless, deathless, inexhaustible, free from earth, water, fire, wind, sun, and moon. So previously I forgot to translate one thing. The three highest higher trainings are a comparison is made and to show how much they are needed to achieve liberation. And the comparison is made to cutting down a tree. If one wants to cut down a tree, you need to have a stable body. The highest higher training in ethics is compared to that stable body. You need a strong arm. The highest higher training in concentration is compared to the strong arm. And you need some kind of a saw. The highest higher training in wisdom is compared to that saw. With all of these three things, you can cut down a tree. Likewise, if you have the highest higher training in ethics, concentration, and wisdom, you're able to cut the root of cyclic existence. You're able to abandon cyclic existence, halt cyclic existence. So that's what is meant by this. Through ethical discipline, concentration, and wisdom, achieve nirvana. So you can achieve liberation through these three highest higher trainings. And the desire to do so is the highest aspiration there is. So that's what the meaning of this is. Yeah, that's the meaning.
네 텐을 보았더라 텐을 보았더라 어때 지름 지기 인데시도 원들라 손 사바손 지장에 사바손 주거리가 봐 사바손 지장에 손으로다 사바들라 손도 장에 그래서 사바들라 손도 장에 그래 손 사바요 말레스 네 시절에는 다마다 니요 말베 시절에는 다바다 마다바 니요다 시절 다마다 니스 장에 그래서 마수 뒤를 시대가 말베 카둘라이나 이단 카두 열라 카두도 자이 카두 니요 그래서 카둘라 열라 카두도 자이 카두 니스 장에 그래서 어때 몸이셔 어떤 잡는데 사바들라 손도 장에 봐서 어때 담을 해대래
So, Lama Tsongkhapa now will present this with three categories. So those are the ones that are listed up here. So Rinpoche is explaining them. So the three categories are the certainty of the enumeration of the three trainings. The second is the determination of the order of the three trainings. And the third is the nature of the three trainings. So when we look at number one, the certainty of the enumeration, this is showing that there aren't more than three trainings, there aren't less than three trainings. The enumeration is exactly three. There are three higher trainings. And it's very similar when you look at the, we call it the logic primer, or the introductory texts in the monastery, where you find out, okay, how many divisions of objects of knowledge are there? There are two, impermanent phenomena and permanent phenomena. How many divisions of color are there? There are two divisions, primary color and secondary color, or root color and secondary color. So this is the meaning of that. How many divisions of trainings are there? There are three. What are they? The highest higher training in ethics, concentration, and wisdom. So this is just showing that the certainty of that number three, that's the exact number of trainings that there are. And that's it. Diksan.
다들 하바들라 손도 장하바 난 담보데 샌듀 발라 뚜비 장에 샌듀 발라 되는 하바 손도 장에 그래스 아니 레불라 되는 하바 손도 장에 그래스 본자를 되는 하바 손도 장에 카군도 어디지 시군도 되주는 가수들 나금도 어떻게 개체도 왔어 다 너래 전부 샌듀 레불라 되는 장에네 샌나바 마인바 샌나바 이와 메바 제바네 추진이 러버스 샌데 나바 이와데 나바 이와 메바 제바데 추진이 러버지 고레스 추진이 러버지 추진 제 러버지 추진이 러버와 추진이 러버지 되네 다되네 샌냐바 마자바 냐바 조바데 띵게지 러버스 샌냐바 마자바 냐바 조바데 띵게지 러버지 고레스 세마 조아 쉐바데 시로지 러버 녀모바데 시 제바 마주바 공제데 워데 시로 러버레스 돈이도 비 시로라 때네 아니 돈이도 비 시로 되게 덴질 넣는거래 덴질 넣는도 덴질 잡은 녀물 넣는거래 동일 넣는거래스 돈이도 비 시로라 때네 덴질 봉투거래 디 잡은 녀모 봉투거래 코아 봉투거래스 타바드마 에메시블로 되게 타바드지 롤는도 어떤 답무도
That's so.
Yeah.
Okay, so the certainty of the enumeration of the trainings, this is explained in terms of three aspects: the stages of disciplining the mind, their results, and the objects they eliminate. So first, the stages of disciplining the mind. The three trainings bring to completion all the tasks of yogis and yoginis as follows. The training in ethical discipline makes a distracted mind undistracted. The training in concentration, or mental training, balances an unbalanced mind, brings peace to an unbalanced mind. The training in wisdom liberates an unliberated mind. So in dependence upon each other, these three higher trainings emerge
and bring about this basis for concentration, and then the concentration brings about the ability to have the wisdom realizing emptiness. So the way that this happens is the grasping at true establishment that binds us to cyclic existence, that then creates the karma and the afflictions that then create the experiences of cyclic existence that we have. One is able to, through the wisdom realizing emptiness, abandon the grasping at true establishment. And by abandoning the grasping at true establishment, one abandons that which it creates, and that is the karma and specifically the afflictions that then perpetuate the cycle. And by abandoning that which causes the cycle to go on, the cycle ends. So this is why it says that wisdom liberates an unliberated mind. It's through this wisdom that we can abandon the grasping at true establishment. It's like when we walk into a dark room and we mistake a rope for a snake. The only thing that gets rid of that mistaken view is understanding that it's a rope and that it's not a snake. So all the emotions that arise from thinking it's a snake are gone the second that the non-mistaken view that it's a rope is understood. Likewise, the understanding that things are not truly established, the wisdom realizing emptiness, serves as that direct opponent to the mistaken view that gives rise to this grasping, and then gives rise to the afflictions and so forth. And by abandoning that, everything else that comes from it then is abandoned as well. So cyclic existence can't happen because there isn't anything to create it anymore. So that's what is meant by wisdom liberates an unliberated mind, and how it's done, how wisdom does that. It's by getting rid of that main fault that is mistaken in regards to reality, and grasps at it as being something that it's not, which is truly established. So the opposite of that, the understanding of its lack of true establishment, negates and abandons everything negative created by the misconception. Okay.
That's handy. The baladine labasun to janga bataje niba debula tubi and labasun to janga banderes da and debula tubi janganes chuti manya bin debun and debi and denduni las chuti de yabusuna chuti nyamena tin debutele debi lada many debi hal chegre debi melje hores in las ne nyabin debun ngandos chuti maswa chuti nyazuna tin debutele nyawa da tundul chinores ngandos senje labin debun kan komi denu yesos tingen ze abu gomba ina ti debutele zugong la da zume hal cheres shiraj labade yabu gongina ti debun tabades shirot labade gomba ina anu wade denje da ti debun yomo da donge bombi taba yungres tabate dona roja lango to da ngele ni das do duna anu roja de lango to da ngele ni yoras ngoto sana lhata me ko bondel ngoto logre ngele sen tabat haji chembare ne kamala kan go ge denunis kan go ge denunis ane kamala wate ne ngele sa kan go ge denunis on du debi madala zume la odre marba kamala kan go ge denuni yobes kamala so wara ngotro la debi denro tan kan komi denro ni yores kamala kan go ge denuni yobe ti doje jang somo ti doje de la labason le yores marba somo tenine 사용을 손소사 어때 수송 공가봐 요르잖아 어때 수면 봐봐 때문에 사용을 손도서다 어때 봐도 레벨티브 장애들에
Okay. So now we've completed the first stages of disciplining the mind. So this is the how section. their results is the second. The results of ethical discipline that have not degenerated are the two happy rebirths of the desire realm, either as a human or as a deity. The result of ethical discipline that has degenerated is, that has degenerated is rebirth in the miserable realm. The results of training of the mind are the two happy rebirths of the higher deities, form or formless. Training the mind is referring to training in concentration. So meditative concentration gives rise to these form and formless realms. The result of training in wisdom is liberation. In brief, the results of the three trainings are the two goals: high status as a human or a deity, and certain goodness of liberation and omniscience. So these are not in the Tibetan added in. Human deity, liberation and omniscience, and Rinpoche added that in the commentary. So it's the same thing the translators put in. Since the former is twofold, happy rebirth in the higher deities realms and happy rebirth in the realm that is desire realm, the trainings that accomplish these are threefold. For these first two certainties of enumeration are mentioned in the levels of yogic deeds. So then Lama Tsongkhapa at the end of all of this says, if you're wondering who stated this or where my source of information is from, you can look in Asanga's text, The Levels of Yogic Deeds. Master Asanga wrote this text. So I think that's it. Digsun.
Digsun. Ta bonja nyomula tubi changen dere goma nane jibu tangpa goma keba goma nane bonja nyomula tuine jang sonzu changen ba yegendu sire ta nyomu senjin ba de nyomu senjin ba chujin jila ba res ane nyomu ane ngone ba de dingen jila ba res nyomu senjin ba sina magi jubu chujin sona magi judu senjin do telne no marba nyomu senjin ba as magi jubu chujin sona magi judu senjin bi yebres nyomu senjin ba sa nyomu senjin ba chujin jila ba je tene nyomu ngonjo ngone ba dingen jila ba je ane saben je ba pongwa lo nyomu saben de je ba pongwa nyomu saben de je ba pongwa de shiro je la ba mena saben de je ba pongtu mare chedan la ba son de namba geje chamba mare sheba de namba tumo mare ta la ba son sheba le yuare namba le yuare ishu ba le yuare hindu samale yujirte la ba son de 어디 내는 집에 나지 라바송 셔러지 라바데 셔러지 돈이도 셔러를 장원도 어느 그 현다데 가가리는 거로 말해봐. 어떤 데이서
And Papi Lapis.
어떤 질러잖아. Yeah.
Okay. So the objects that they eliminate is the number 3. So when we look at these three higher trainings, if we just look at them in terms of 3 trainings, higher trainings, we would say that they're found in other religious traditions as well. The training in ethics, concentration, and wisdom is found in the Christian tradition, in the Hindu tradition, other Jewish tradition, other religious traditions that are non-Buddhist, we find them. But this higher training in wisdom that's specifically about emptiness is exclusive to the Buddhist tradition. And that is why they are called the 3 highest higher trainings, because that sets the training apart. This kind of notion of an understanding of emptiness when we're looking at that training in wisdom. And that is exclusive to the Buddhist tradition and can't be found in those other traditions. But there are trainings in concentration in wisdom and ethics, obviously, in other religious traditions.
라바들라 송도 장아바 sendu 레발드네 송도 장아바 레발드 송도 장아바 뇽몰라드 송도 장아바 어디서 야브네고도 어디 내가 쳐도 다 장아바 송도 차례다.
So when we look at the certainty of the enumeration, we look at the certainty of the enumeration because of the stages of disciplining the mind. The results of the certainty of enumeration and the objects that the certainty of enumeration eliminate. So that it's important for us to be able to look at it in terms of that. And when the Sumba Chu Losun.
Sumba Nyamuro, Kebo Command said, Roa, and the Chu de Lube. Command on the Ponja Nyamula Tune Jang, Sonto Jete Sa, Swenji Batan, Gunaba, Swenji Jilova, Gunaba Tingas Lava, Saban Zenapon, Labos, what about the Marba?
Okay.
With the Lazaro.
Oh, go get maybe Chigrimche.
Yeah.
Lapsa. Former teachers asserted that in relation to the objects they eliminate, the afflictions, the trainings are threefold. According to whether they eliminate afflictions by weakening them, suppressing their manifest forms, or eradicating their seeds. So the highest higher training in ethics is number 1, weakening them. The highest higher training in concentration, suppressing their manifest forms. And the highest higher training in wisdom, eradicating their seeds. So these three are linked to those higher trainings as well. Lama Tsongkhapa is referring to that.
Tani badal Korean badal Korean Chudi Tambure love Tingazi Tambure Shera Lava Tambure Sana Korean to what the Tambu Chudi Lavare, Niba Tingazi Lavare, Somba de Shera Lavares. Tambo so then Shera ta what the Korean there and water, Korean Yabane, Chambe Shuba, Chambe Shuba, Sai Mojil Sondus, Sai Moja, Sanga Sai Mojil, Sondus, Sai Moji Tambale, Chambe Shubindo, Chamba Shubindo G, and the Sai Mojil Transhandus, and then what the Karsuna, Sawashin to Temba, Chujin Jalaba, she sent la Kawa. Tingazi Laba, Pabita Dang, Dibita, Denver Shashi Tawasha, She Son Bitan dos, what the Korean, what the Dang dos. Tell a Chutin and Zawates, Chutin Jilaba the Zawares, and the Zawa image Garas, nothing as the Jilabata, Shero Jilaba Yabate, Chutin Jilaba Lishon Yes, Join Sheris, Dako Dua. Tingazi Jilaba the Shera Jilaba Ni, Chutin Lishon Yenzang, Chutin Glaba Zawares, Join Shero, Chutin Latene, Senyaba Majaba La, Noba Gawa Niba Wosa, Tingazi Jilaba Niba the Yungres, Senyaba Jaba Jabe, Yantaba Jetawa Jil Tun Sheris, and Pabitawa Dan, Denshin, Dibita Dan. Somos what the same things is Labalatene, things is Labalatene, Tuni la maybe things is Labalatene, Tuni la maybe Latung the Chesuna, then what the Tabilan Marba and Senyaba Jabe, Antaba Jetawa Jento, Tony Sher, Pabitawa, Danshin, Dibi Tawa, Tawa Somos. And Tony la maybe Shera Jilaba Johnsona, and Dibitawa, and Nyomozu Kangapon Gressa, so most what about it? Yeah. Rimba the Rimba.
The determination of the order of the three trainings. So, why are they placed in this order? What's the reason that? Because ethics, concentration, wisdom. For what reason? It says the order of the three trainings is demonstrated in a passage from the sutra requested by Brahma, quoted in the levels of yogic deeds. Ethical discipline is a very steady root. Concentration is the delight in a serene mind. In wisdom, the views of noble beings and the views of sinners are acquired and forsaken respectively. Among these, ethical discipline is the root because the other two grow out of it. So it's showing how there's this cause and effect relationship between them and how one comes from the other. Concentration, the second of the three trainings, depends on ethical discipline and takes pleasure in putting the mind in meditative equipoise. Wisdom, the third of the three trainings depends on meditative equipoise and forsakes the view of sinners while acquiring the view of noble beings in order to see reality exactly. So here it's saying that this type of practitioner who's engaging in these three higher trainings has this kind of root, this stable foundation of ethics that then allows him or her to get this concentration, training in concentration, or realize this training in concentration, and then use the training in concentration and direct it at the object of observation, which is emptiness. And then by utilizing emptiness as one's object of observation, one can then arrive at what is called special insight, a union of calm abiding and this understanding of wisdom based on correct signs. So an understanding of emptiness, rather, based on correct signs. So this is how the trainings work together and why they are in the order that they are, because concentration creates an environment for, the ethics creates an environment for the concentration, and concentration allows one to see emptiness. So this is the reason. And here it says, meditative equipoise and forsakes the views of sinners. So forsakes the view of those beings who are engaged in non-virtue, and the view of those who are grasping at true establishment is the view of someone who engages in non-virtue, while acquiring the view of noble beings, those who see that the things are not truly established. Noble beings are superiors, Arya beings. Khensur Rinpoche.
다 송바 라바 송지 라지들도 추진지 라바드 간데레 딩게지 라바드 간데레 시러지 라바드 간데레서 어때네 대라진이 시용도와 안에 라진 다 등굴 자가 간데지가 춘루고도 말이야
The Jiangzhou Dumba.
전도 동바 지여서로
Yene, the karma nishu dan ni yire.
야
Yene, the karma ju chi shena Jiangzhou Dumba.
오래
The jutsu ju chi datang e jongo.
오래 다는 고소야 아버지의 소다네 어떤지 말해
Okay. Rinpoche said instead of starting a brand new section now, someone has requested a refuge vow. If anybody else would like it, they could stay as well. But we're going to end here. And he said that he could tell everybody listened very well today and really paid attention. So he thinks it's a good time to end here. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. And thank you all for coming. I appreciate when we see new faces. And please come again. A very rare opportunity to learn from somebody as qualified as Rinpoche. Rinpoche said, really, everyone listened so well. Thank you. Okay, so the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer, anybody who's new, is right at the end of the book. And we do it all just in English, right to the end. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Dragpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Gupti Shapi Den